And for more on this, we have joined by Siddharth Bharadwaj from Kathmandu, Nepal. Well, Siddharth, it appears that young voters had a major impact in the voting in the elections, hoping for a substantial change in the voting yesterday. With counting now underway, when can we expect the results to be announced?
Well, Lipakshi, results can be announced by 5 p.m., by the evening. But then the latest news that we are picking up here is that RSP, which is Rashtriya Swatantra Party, is leading in all 10 constituencies in Kathmandu. And this goes on to show that how the Gen Z protest, which happened in the September last year, wherein the Gen Zs got united and united for a cause, is actually, we are seeing the results of that. And since RSP is leading in all 10 constituencies in Nepal, in Kathmandu, goes on to show that it is showing effect. What Gen Z's demands, we all know. Gen Z's demand, they demand a good governance. They demand the next government should focus on the Gen Z's and their issues, which is migration is one of the issues, and of course new opportunities for Gen Z's. They say that the next government should provide more and more opportunities to Gen Z so that they don't have to work outside, they don't have to work in foreign countries. If we get more opportunities here in our own country, then we'll work here, we'll grow, and we can take care of our families. Lipakshi, the elections, the historic ones, we can say, which took place last year, yesterday on March 5th, the voter turnout was 60%, and when we compare that to last year, the voter turnout was somewhere around, last time in 2022, it was somewhere around 61%. So yeah, when you compare the voter turnout, it's not much difference, but then what stood out in these elections is the huge participation from the youth and especially from the Gen Zs. So the results of the 165 seats of the parliament, which comprise of 275 seats, is expected to be out today by 5 p.m. Or perhaps early. That we have to wait and see. But the thing is that the results for 165 seats, which comes under the first past the post, which is also known as the direct voting, will be out today, and we'll get to know which is leading in these elections, which party is leading, which political candidate is leading. But then in these elections, the battle is between the traditional political parties and the new leaders. When you talk about one of the oldest parties, Nepali Congress, Gagan Thapa is there. He is standing, as a person who's favorites to youth from the Nepali Congress. And Balendra Shah, as we all know, he's 35-year-old and is the most talked about leader when it comes to these elections.
Right.
The Gen Zs, the youth, they are in support of Balendra Shah, but then you can't say anything, and that is the reason these elections are very, very interesting, because you don't know what the result would be. However, the final result, it will take somewhere about 1 to 2 weeks to come out, because the proportional representation system is a complicated system. So the counting the ballots of proportional representation takes a little time. So that is the reason why the results will be out, within a week or two, maybe.
All right.
But then, as it comes to first past the post, the results are expected to be out today by 5 p.m. and we'll get to know which side the wind is blowing. Lipakshi.
All right. So, as you said, the Gen Z, of course, has a major say in these elections. About 60% of voters participated in yesterday's election. How significant, Siddharth, is this turnout, if we talk about, particularly in the wake of the last year's youth-led protest?
Lipakshi, these are very, very significant elections. These are very, very important elections for Nepal. When you talk about the Gen Z protest, which happened last year in the month of September, it actually shook the country, the entire country. It rocked the country and took a hit on country's economy and political stability as well. So from that perspective, these elections are very, very crucial. These elections are very, very important. Everyone, when we had a word with people who came to vote, we've been to somewhere about 9 to 10 polling stations, so maybe more. So people who were there, especially the young generations and Gen Z, they were saying that we are voting and we are voting for a change. We want to see change, and we want the next government to eradicate the corruption from the country completely, because it is something that is having an effect on country's economy as well, and also further not letting the employment opportunities to get generated for the young people and for all the Gen Z. So they want the the next government to specifically focus first on eradicating the corruption from the country, and number two, to generate more and more employment opportunities for the youth so that they can work here. And apart from that, migration is a big issue. Lipakshi, you can see people of Nepal, you've seen them working in some other countries as well. So they don't want that. They want to stay in their own country. They want to work here, and they want more and more opportunities there so that they can take care of their families, and apart from that, they can do many other things. So from that perspective, these elections are very, very crucial. Now, when the next government will come, Nipakshi, when the final results will be out, single party majority is very unlikely. So it's very likely that a coalition government will be formed, again, that the results will decide. But if that happens, it will take further time. When the next government will be formed, the foreign policy of the government will also be formed, and it will decide a lot how the country's relation with the other countries are and will be. Especially when we talk about India and Nepal, both the countries share a very strong relationship.
Right.
Both the countries share cultural ties. Both the countries share people-to-people ties. So the relation between the two countries is very strong, and going further, it is expected to getting more and more stronger with the formation of the new government with these elections.
All right, so corruption, migration and employment, of course, are the major issues. And let's see where the results swing in next.